Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Whatcha Got Podcast, where we talk topics A to Z and everything in between. I am Jordan Palmer, joined as always by Charlie Budd, and today we're questioning the nature of our reality with this singular episode. Are we real? There's a lot here, especially as it's been popularized in pop culture. People even talk about it on social media. And I have a number of questions for you there, Bud, to take us in a million directions, and there's no particular right place to start. So I'm just curious. I'll ask you a question to begin. How do you define the nature of your reality, Bud? What you got?
Feels like I'm in an episode of Westworld right now, Palmer. Have you been watching some Westworld, and that's how you came up with this situation here?
Potentially.
I don't know. Define my reality now. That's the $1 million question. I guess I define my reality by things that I can, see with my senses, or perceive with my senses, rather.
Okay.
Uh, you know, I can see this, I can hear that, I can smell that, taste it, if you will. But then again, seeing is believing isn't necessarily always true. I mean, have you seen $1 million, but you know it exists, right? So there's also perceived or assumptions in a way. I don't really know if there's like a scientific term for this, but there are things that you just perceive to be true because you know it to be true. Like it can be quantifiably true, like in the case of like $1 million, or researching, like reading an article about research conducted halfway around the world. Like you perceive it to be true because it's told to you by credible witnesses. So in that sense, like you have to make your own judgment, but I would perceive that as like, my reality. That is how I assume reality, based on how like my five senses plus the extension of um an acceptable, or at least a plausible witness, or an acceptable, a trustful witness to kind of play telephone and give me things that I haven't personally experienced. But how do you perceive reality?
I'd honestly say more or less along the lines of what you just answered. Like everything I can see, touch, taste. You really emphasized that one
Yeah,
there.
well,
Here. It's an important
yeah,
one,
it's an important
life is
one.
enjoyed through the tongue.
You can't taste, then what's life? What's food?
Yeah,
What's
that's true.
water? Or not water
Things I need
necessarily,
for
but
survival.
what's a drink?
Yeah, very true. See, that's interesting. But I'd even take a step back, and if you want to, I'll state it as it's stated to all of us. We are just flesh bags
Hmm.
on a hunk of rock moving in space in an ever expanding universe that will one day experience, I guess, heat death and
Eat
just
death.
fizzle into nothing.
Ooh, deep
I know,
stuff.
deep stuff, deep stuff.
Deep stuff. Yeah, do you
But
perceive like, oh, sorry, continue.
no, you're good. You're good. I was just gonna say. So that's interesting. You brought up the part about the credible witness, and you talk about. So it's interesting. So as we grew up, went through school, we were told all these events that happened before we got here, and it's like, do you believe all of those things happened? Do you think
Hmm.
that some of them have been tweaked, obviously, based on whoever maybe was victorious or whoever just got to pass the account along?
Um, yeah, I do think history in a way is like, maybe not in the past 150, 200 years, because with the rise of like credible news sources, and but I think history at a point in time, and for probably the vast majority of history, is written by the victors. Like you go back to history of like ancient Rome, how much of that is true? We can only go with what, scientific evidence, or recorded documentation, but like we never hear the other side of it because the history is just written by the victors. Like it's always from the Roman perspective, the perspective of the Roman Empire. And like, I'm not a history buff on the Roman Empire, but I feel like a lot of people probably would think they kind of look positively on that empire, but at the same time they were imperialistic people who conquered like Europe, Northern Africa, and like some parts of Asia. So like it's kind of wild when you think about that, and you don't really see the history from the other side. Like I don't know. I'm not a history buff, as I said, so I don't know kind of who they were in quarrel with. But,
Oh, I think Carthage was like their big enemy. But
hmm
no, that's interesting too because I feel like oftentimes we allow those events to define how we go about making decisions moving forward. And as far as we're concerned, we don't even know if that technically happened. So that's
yeah.
very fascinating that we have, we assume it's true, but we have unproven ideas that we then use as the blueprint for more or less our lives. So
hmm
fascinating. Why'd you also lock in on the Roman Empire too? Any
Just
particular
because I
reason?
don't know. It's like I don't know. I guess it came up in something recently that I was reading that, and also it's just a pretty easy kind of like culprit to point to when you think about at a point in time where there was one nation, if you will, that just like conquered like half of the known world at the time. So, um, pretty wild stuff.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And so, this is a tough one, and I know this is probably going to lead us down into a rabbit hole. But how would you go about proving that you're like? How do we know we're real right now?
I don't know if there's like it's like that's such a hard question. Like, how do you prove that I'm real or you're real? I feel like I'm real because I feel like I have a will of my own right now. But do I
Mm,
have a will of my own? I mean, we've talked about fate versus free will on this
true, true.
podcast before. So, do I have a will of my own? Am I actually, speaking like, everything in my life I've experienced from like my personal point of view, and like you would say the same thing, right? But how could we prove that we're not just living in a computer simulation? And but then you have to ask yourself, then who's the main character? Is it one person living in the simulation, or are we all just a simulation? Are we just like a project in some, you know, some lab experiment that who created our universe and is just letting it all play out and seeing kind of what happens? Who's to say that isn't happening? There's zero evidence for this, but it's fun to think about.
Dude, I heard there's like a theory
Mhm.
that essentially we're not even all in this together right now. Like if this is a simulation,
Mhm.
it's we were at one time, right? And then we all got one loop around. And the second that happened, everybody got split up, and now you're on your own loop. And so you're just reliving your whole life over and over again. And some people believe it's all going to remain exactly the same. And some people believe that you can actually change things as you go around. Hopefully, you
Interesting.
eventually get to the ideal life, which is trippy. But like that could essentially mean we've had this conversation
We have
an
had this
infinite
combo.
number of times.
I
Oh, we've
mean,
had this
we've also
in
talked
reality.
about like this like specific kind of like thing. Like
Okay.
if you lived your life over again, do you think you would make the same decisions? Or do you think you would make different decisions without having any memory of the previous life? Like
I feel
we've
like if you
talked
have no
about
memory
that.
of it, okay. But I'm just gonna restate for everybody. I feel like if you have no memory of your previous life, then wouldn't you just end up doing exactly the same thing?
I feel like you might, yeah. Maybe slight variations. Maybe
Yeah.
depending if like certain events happen again. You have like because that's another thing. Like, does the environment repeat itself?
Do you mean like
The environment
all the
around
same
you.
events?
Yeah, like the same events happen. Like, it does that one time where you almost get in a car crash actually happen again, or do you get in the car crash that time? Or, like, do you, break your leg that, one
Skiing.
day playing, not skiing. Do you break your leg
So,
playing hockey one day, or do you, you choose, or you don't break your leg playing hockey that one day? Like, it's a tough question, definitely to answer, but like I feel like there might have to be slight variations, but I think you individually as a person probably would remain the same and kind of act in a manner that you would act in now. Like I don't see why starting your life all over again you'd like change kind of who you are essentially.
Also, just to give context, Charlie definitely broke his leg while skiing,
Yeah.
which is why I just brought that one. It's not that funny, but it is right now at this moment. But that's interesting you bring that all up because it kind of makes way to the notion of the multiverse. Like, so we are obviously one iteration of reality, but there could be an infinite number of other realities in which those minor events actually happen. So it could be the entire world, like your entire life that you're living now, except you trip one day. And that would just be the whole universe.
Yep.
Like,
Butterfly effect.
Yes.
Create something else, That is interesting though, because I feel like the multiverse is definitely an interesting theory, and I even think it can kind of stand up in like some quantum physics situation or like theoreticals. But also like parallel universes, which I don't know if that's necessarily the same thing as a multiverse, but I don't think it is, because like, do you think there's more than just, like, we live in a universe, right? And we just assume that everything in that universe is like, there's just one, right? Because how could there be another? Well, for all we know, the universe is infinite. It just goes on forever, which is kind of wild to think about. Like, I don't think humans can comprehend the reality of the size of the universe, because to us and how we know it as, it is infinite. Like, what space is it expanding into,
Yo, isn't that trippy? Isn't that so trippy, dude? Oh man, there's there's people say if you look up, like, just imagine it just keeps going on and on and on, and there's no ceiling.
Nothing forever. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to solve, like, okay, the universe is expanding. It's expanding because of the Big Bang. What caused the Big Bang? Another great question. What created literally nothing was there? Nothing, apparently. Nothing at all. And suddenly all of this was created from an explosion of energy? Where did that explosion of energy come from? You're telling me that it just happened? I'm sorry. We're getting into like the physical, like physics, like questions that these physicists probably have been pondering for the last 100 years and have no answer to it. And I think the leading theory, I could be totally wrong on this because I haven't read up on like, theories in the Big Bang, is that it was like it was a white hole explosion.
A white hole?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I read about this like 10 years ago, and the science could be completely not there anymore. I don't know. So basically what it is that, like, we have black holes, right?
Yes.
Stuff gets sucked into a black hole, and the question is, well, where does it go, right? Like, where does it go, A, and B, like, what's inside a black hole? We don't really know what's inside a black hole. Some people believe that the energy that the black holes suck up condenses and warps time and space so much that it creates a literal universe and spits it out, creating what's called a white hole and just exploding like energy and stuff.
Dude, two things. Number one, Star Trek 1. So it was Christopher. Was it Christopher? No, it was oh my gosh, am I blanking on the director? Anywho, it was Chris Pine was Captain Kirk. And essentially, they got old Spock, so Leonard Nimoy, got sucked into a black hole, and it put him into a parallel universe, which is Chris Pine's universe, and that's essentially what just happened there. So it's like a doorway to another universe, A. B, if you ever like read the graphic novel Akira or watch the movie, there was an event in Japan in the beginning that's like an explosion, like on like an atomic level, but essentially so much energy was created that it's, in the comics, it creates a separate universe.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like in the realm of like science fiction, but it also could totally be like, real. Because I'm pretty sure like black holes used to be a thing of science fiction until we found them, that they existed.
Wow, Bill, great idea, man. I guess you were on to something.
Wow, just dreamt that up one day, huh, Bill? Nice job.
Oh man,
it's just, which is kind of wild. Like, you think about that aspect of it, and it just boggles the mind. I can't even begin to imagine, like, if you were able to somehow get to the edge of the universe, right? Which would be, it's impossible for us right now, even theoretically. Like, I mean, theoretically we could. Okay, theoretically, yeah, it's possible. Like we
You
could.
think we could get to the edge of the universe?
No, not with any modern technology. I
Okay,
meant like if you could theoretically get there, you would have to travel faster than the speed of light because apparently the universe expands faster than the speed of light.
That's news
I
to
think
me.
so. Let me see. I will Google this.
Yeah.
Somebody
get that fact checking going.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is so trippy. But while you're thinking about that, what's your favorite like reality bending movie, show, whatever it may be, that makes you question the nature of
reality bending shows?
Yeah,
Question the
it's
nature of reality. I mean, I guess like the popular one is like The Matrix, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It's easy. It's like the definition of reality bending, where we live, like the entire premise of that movie is that the world that we live in right now is just a simulation put up by literal robots, and we're just playing their game, we're playing their dance, and we have to be liberated, and like and according to well, hold on, is this like a credible source?
Oh boy, talking about credible sources. I was gonna say I did have a conversation once back in college with like a professor and some other students. We were all at a lunch, and they were like, "Well, the leading belief, the most likely explanation for why we're all right here is because we're in some simulation." I was like, "Trippy." You know what's crazy? Imagine if you're in a simulation right now or like a game. Most people, like the games we play, video games and whatnot, are so much more interesting than everyday life typically. So this is a game and we're all in here. What is life like out there? It's gotta be pretty boring.
You mean like outside, if like we live in a simulation, like is life out there boring? And apparently, yes, the universe does expand faster than light.
Oh. Look at you, up on your facts.
Sorry, back on track because I got a little sidetracked there. So you think life outside the simulation? I would have to think that it's either we're just, I don't know, like it's like a giant lab experiment. I know there's like 7.5 billion people on this planet, and I don't think that would be totally possible. Maybe we're in a space station, maybe we're not even on Earth, and it's just something that was completely created by a computer, and that we don't actually live on a planet called Earth. It's just like this giant, computer simulation. We live on some random planet on a galaxy, not even that we know of or aware of. The universe that we perceive as our reality is not the reality that, like, is not the actual universe. It's maybe something completely different. Who is to say, But
jeez,
I would think that life out there would probably be more advanced. Way more
obviously
advanced.
we're here.
I mean,
pretty good job, guys. I couldn't tell the difference.
way more advanced, because, and I think that the simulation is just running from trying to figure out how life was created and what happens when trying to use maybe a prediction model to determine where the fate of humanity goes based on certain aspects that they might have experienced if in their own history, and trying to predict the future that way.
Interesting, bud. What a thought there.
So, I might be pulled out soon because I figured it out, and
they got him. They got him.
Get him out.
It's like next week I'm like, hey Zach, what do you think of the What You Got podcast with Jordan and Zach? And it's like just somebody completely random.
Yeah.
They rewrote the code.
Or, we're all in there charging up a car. We're here to charge up the car.
Dude, that was my favorite. That was my literally my favorite reality bending thing comes from Rick and Morty. It's not that. It's literally the one where they play Roy.
Oh yeah.
At Brooks and Chids. And he's like, man, you went back to the furniture store. Oh man. Like real setback there, huh, Morty? That's my favorite one.
Yeah, no, that one's pretty wild. Like, what if you just, when you pass away in your old age, you wake up and you're like a 14-year-old in an arcade, and you're like, what is happening?
What about my wife? What happened
It's
to my
like,
wife?
you've only been playing for like 20 minutes, dude. And I'm like, I've lived 89 years. I've lived 100 years. Like, oh my God.
Oh, that would be terrifying.
And then suddenly, like, you're like, you remember everything that you lived your life. And that is a pretty wild one. Although, like, I think my favorite one is the car battery situation.
Okay.
Like, I imagine that, like, if there's an experiment out there, we're literally just living organisms created in like a like a freaking fish tank, but it's a universe, and like we're the size of, I don't know, atoms to them, or like I don't even know, I don't know what it would be, like a quantum engine or something, and we're just living in it, and that's our reality, and they're examining us from wherever.
Oh man! Once again, Rick and Morty. What was the butter like robot? He's like, "What is my purpose?"
Yeah, he's like,
the butter.
It's like,
oh god,
you butter bread. Oh my god.
Hopefully that's not our purpose, because that would not be fun.
Our purpose right now is to just work 40 hours a week and do that until you're 65 apparently.
Isn't that crazy that we have the ability to change all of that? We just have like gone along with it because that's the norm. Like,
you know what's crazy? If you like look at the history of working, is that it wasn't always that way. Like, there were early on in the 20th century, I might be messing up a little bit on the facts or the timeline here, but the average like working week was like
credible
80
sources.
hours. Well, it was a credible source that I was reading it from.
Right.
I just don't remember all the details. But the history of working, like early 20th century, I think our average working week was like 60 to 70 hours a week or something like that. Basically, uh, especially poor people, like, the rich would be like, why would the poors want time for themselves? Like, their life was to just wake up, work all day, and then get home from work and go to sleep. That was their life. And then over time, this started going away because, people wanted to not work all the time. And
Makes
work
sense.
hours went down. And then it wasn't until we hit like around 40 hours, which I forget when in history during the 20th century that kind of became the norm, but it stagnated, right? And 40 hours has now been the norm for the last like 80 years, right? Like 40-hour work weeks is what we have come to expect. It's what we know. And like, not to really kind of derail the podcast episode on like on like from talking about our reality here, but like, I don't feel like I need 40 hours in a week to do my job. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I don't think you're alone there, and I think most people would actually agree. It's interesting. I think, what is it, Sweden, who's always on top of this stuff, is converting to been experimenting with a 4-day work week. I'm like, that would be awesome. I don't know who decided 5 was a good day and 2 days off, because it's like, I'll tell you how the weekend goes. You work. Okay, so Saturday, it's like maybe you sleep in, you get up, you knock out all your errands and everything, you just get things started. Sunday is like oh my gosh, tomorrow it all begins.
I think again. 2 days was the compromise. I think if they didn't have to give us time off, companies would have us be working 7 days a week.
That is terrible.
Mm-hmm. And also, they would be giving us or making us work like 80 hours a week if they could. It's because of labor laws that they have to require 40 hours. And I always found it interesting that you don't get rewarded for hard work at your office. You just get rewarded with more work because you are held to 40 hours a week. So say you finish all your work for the day in about 4 hours. You don't get to just go home. You have you just get more work. And they tell you, okay, well, maybe you need more because you clearly don't have enough work. And so therefore, we need to find you more. We need to literally, in this scenario, would have to double the workload because you worked through all of your daily tasks in 4 hours and you still have 4 hours free on company time.
That's like so true. Like, yeah, it's like not really. Although I do know Netflix has been like trying to change that. They're like, just come in, get your work done. You can come in at whatever time, and then you can leave.
Companies should be like that. Like,
I agree.
The way I see it is, you can maybe set up projects or like deadlines on a weekly basis, right? Mm-hmm. In my experience, there's very few things that need to be done day of. Usually we get at least like a week's notice. And even if there is something that needs to be done day of, you still have a full week to finish your weekly projects. And I think companies should adopt that you pay someone a salary, but they can work as little or as much as they want as long as the work gets done. So say one day they just want to work 3 hours on a Monday or something. They get some work done, they come in, they do it, they get some work done, they work on the thing that's due Friday. Tuesday they come in, they work 6 hours. Wednesday they come in and work 2 hours. Thursday they come in and work 10 hours. Friday, 4 hours and they're done with the weekly tasks that they had to do. And I feel like
that up?
I don't know.
Get that math? I was like, that would be incredible. I was like, whoa, you were ready for it, bud.
I don't know. I don't know if that means 40 hours, but like even if it doesn't make 40 hours in a week, it doesn't matter because the tasks were done, right? Mm-hmm. Because I work on a clientele thing, and so therefore my work is dictated by, mostly clientele. Sure, my team has work to do, and like we can do like on our own to like automate or certain projects that we want to do within our team to make our lives a little easier. But at the end of the day, like we are still dictated by like what our client needs, right? And not all the time is there 40 hours in a week. I'm sorry if anybody from work is listening to this, but like I genuinely don't always feel that way. I mean, sure, there are some weeks where it's busy, but there are also some weeks where it's slow, and I have to find things to do to fill up the time because I'm on company time rather than getting that time back for myself when I don't normally. So
no, and it's funny you meant. I always think of Stanley from The Office. Mm-hmm. I remember once, I forget what the context was. It was like, oh, should we be doing something? He's like, look, we're just running out the clock right now. Yeah. I was like, geez. But like, there's some people who literally, they'll do something they can knock out in like 2 seconds for like 2 hours just because it's like, this is all I have really to do. And what am I going to do after that? So I agree. And unfortunately, I think the longer you're in the workforce, the more accustomed you'd become to that. I think it's great for our generation because we can knock things out and ways of working are evolving to kind of match that.
Yeah.
But I do think that we still have some ways to go.
I know. I think, I definitely think like more flexible hours and just like paying someone like, hey, here's a salary. Not to mention that, wages themselves need to just go up and stuff. But because cost of living keeps rising, especially in certain areas of the United States, and inflation rose like the highest it's been in for a long time. And this is unfortunately the reality that we live in, is that we work 40-hour weeks, we get underpaid, and things get more expensive.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's the perfect lead up because if this was the Matrix with all of that being taken into consideration, would you go for the blue pill, stay with it?
Oh boy.
Or would you go for the red pill where you don't know what's really out there, but I'll take it and just take my chances?
I don't know. It's hard, right? Because the blue means comfort, right? Blue is just like, I don't have to change anything. I don't need to risk to find out what's out there. Like, even if this is a simulation, maybe the life I'm living in my simulation isn't too bad. Yeah, but we just went on a rant about, the working life of a millennial in the 21st century. But I don't know. If I was offered this, I guess I would take the red pill. Oh, red pill Andy over here.
Whoa.
Just to see what's out there, man. What you're telling me you would take the blue pill there, Palmer? You don't want to know what's outside the simulation?
I mean, you just pulled the trigger so quick. I'd probably end up taking the red pill, but I need to take some serious time to be like, do I do it? I like the taste of steak. That's a little reference to the Matrix. I'm like, I don't know. And then it also just assess. It's interesting. It's like, would you want to step but okay, assuming that was the case, and you took the red pill, say you'd step away from everything, like everybody you know in this world, everything. You're just Charlie on
It's
the
wild.
outside.
It wouldn't be easy, but like at the same time, would you really know what the red pill would do? Like, it's not an easy decision, and it's
No,
definitely a
no.
hypothetical. Like you're like
Yeah, yeah.
basically getting ripped out of the life that you literally have, versus just staying and kind of being the drone that the simulation wants you to be. Um, so it's
Would you take the
definitely
red
tough.
pill knowing you could not come back?
Oh, that'd be really hard. That'd be really hard, man. It's a tough question because that kind of implies that there's something totally different if you take the red pill and the experience you'd have, and then like you can't go back. Like, what if you hate it, out there? What if it's just like a dystopian world, like it literally is in the Matrix? Like, do you think Keanu Reeves' character, like Neo, was like, "Fuck, I want to go back. I want to get back into the Matrix. Get me out, like out of this world that we live in." Like why? I haven't seen the Matrix in a long time, so I don't remember if there was a
Same, dude. Same.
specific reason why he really wanted to get out, and like I don't know if they were like going to do something with everybody in the simulation. I can't recall, but I don't know. What would you do, Palmer? It's tough.
Dude, like knowing I can't come, like I just part of me says I would have the strength to take the red pill because I'd know none of this was real, more or less.
Hmm.
The other part's like
But would
it's
the people
but
in the
is it real? Yeah. Okay, sorry,
are the
go for
people
it.
like in the simulation just other people trapped in the simulation, or are they just like literal figments of your imagination that are created by the simulation? Like, are you the main character?
I was doing it with everybody who was in here was real, but I don't know if
Hmm.
that means like your family is your actual family. Like they're
Oh,
just the
that's
ones who
true.
are assigned to you.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's wild to think about.
Yeah, dude.
Would you
Oh
try to like
man.
save the people that you were friends with in the simulation? Do you think you'd have memories of that simulation? Like yeah, you would, right?
I think so, yeah, because you retain, because I guess you weren't expected to be able to break free.
Hmm.
And you, because if you just went out a blank slate, you would be screwed.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, where am I? Who am I? What are
Hmm.
all these people doing, like locked up in this
Yeah.
these little pods? Like, yeah, I try my best to get everybody out, like if I could. Not everybody necessarily, but like my
The
squad.
people
Yeah.
your simulation family. Yeah.
Yep. What if you can only get? I'm not gonna ask like if you can only choose 3 people, who would you choose? But no, we're not gonna do that. That's
That'd be tough.
super dark. It's like sorry, mom and dad. Oh
Ooh.
man. But I am curious. So you also mentioned just like the Rick and Morty, the Ricks Must Be Crazy, where they're in a car battery, right?
Hmm.
Or there's a world in a battery that's charging it, and then they make a world within a world and a world within a world,
Hmm.
so on and so forth. And it kind of seems like that's if we are in a simulation, that's kind of what we're doing with the metaverse. So I don't know how much you've read up on that. What are your thoughts and feelings on the metaverse?
I don't know. Like I watched a video about like the how it's like the future of capitalism, the metaverse, and how basically that platform services have kind of been uh, this new wave, I guess, like to make money. So when you think about it, like Apple, right? App Store, okay, it's just a platform for like software developers to promote their applications or like their apps. Um, and all Apple does is provide you the store to put your app on, and every transaction that you make on your app, Apple takes 30% of the cut. So essentially, and like a perfect way to kind of describe this is say you have a landlord, right? Okay, you pay him rent to be on the platform, like I think people do with the App Store for Apple, right? You pay Apple to be on the platform, which is fine. That's okay. Where it kind of crosses the line is that say your landlord every time you go and buy a banana, say the banana is $10. I know expensive bananas, but say the bananas are $10, okay? Your landlord would then have to take, or no, rather you sell bananas. I think let's go with that. I
Okay.
think that makes the more sense in this situation. Say
I'm
you are
with you.
selling bananas for $10. Okay, like they have nothing to do with bananas. You just simply live in an apartment they own, but the landlord would take $3 from that transaction, and you would be left with 7 simply because you're in the apartment that they own, but you're already paying them rent. That's basically what Apple does with in-app transactions, and they actually got sued by Epic Games to challenge that rule, like that rule, which is still ongoing from what I've
I was
last
gonna
heard.
ask what the deal
But
was.
you take this kind of same like principle, right? Like Uber does something similar where they're just a platform of convenience to get basically contractors to drive people around, right? They take a cut out of every Uber because they supply the convenience. Okay, Metaverse is going to be the same exact concept. Okay, like I don't really know exactly what the metaverse is, to be honest, but it's going to be a platform, right? Meta, Facebook is creating a metaverse, and from what they showed off, it's basically just like Ready Player One. Okay, um, say though that you're in Meta's metaverse in a Ready Player One kind of virtual room or whatever. Um, but everything you buy, Facebook or Meta in this case, takes like, gets a cut of it, or everything that you sell, Meta gets a cut of it because you live on their platform in your virtual God knows what. So like you're buying like virtual clothes or you're selling or trading or doing whatever, and Meta takes all the cuts from any independent party that you would be buying it from or selling it to because they simply exist and have the platform that you are on. So,
Dude, I hear people are spending the same amount of money they'd be spending on real estate in the real world in the metaverse to claim a stake of like land or whatnot. Which, and the crazy thing is, like, if this is like an actual virtual world, that means that the potential is unlimited because they can continue to expand this like in an unlimited manner. So they
yeah,
can continue to make money off of like basically an unending resource that they
exactly.
control.
It's an infinite
Wild.
resource that they control and they can get all like it's like yeah, it's absurd in that regard. Like and because they like they could probably will even claim that like say you buy a house in in Meta's metaverse, right? And then you try to sell that house, what is stopping Meta from taking a cut of that sale on a house that they created and technically own the property to because it's in their metaverse?
That's very true, dude. They could do that. They could do basically they could. And the scary thing is, there's gonna be people who are like, "Oh, I'm that's fine. I'll do it."
No,
And there's
it's
gonna
not
be like
fine. It's platform
golden.
economic. There's like, platform capitalism, which is what is the tech industry today. Google, Facebook, Apple, uh, Uber, all those like crowdfunding apps that popped up because like the new Uber of delivery, food delivery. Like
Yeah,
like these are just platform apps that take fees out of any like restaurant order simply because they just facilitate the convenience.
yeah. It's like a great business plan, great
Mm,
business idea, but like when you see how it plays out, it can be a little hard on everybody involved, with the exception of those who are
yeah.
making the money
Would you
off of
really want to
doing
pay your
it.
landlord every time you make a sale?
No, I would. And it's what it'd be
Or
one thing if it
or
was
say
like
say say it's like this: you're buying $10 of bananas, but your landlord taxes you $3 because you brought bananas into your home or something. Like I don't know. Like think about it like that. It would be ridiculous, right? It's
dude,
ridiculous.
if I didn't have to pay rent, like in that scenario, like if they just took the money out of the bananas, okay, that's like one thing, I guess.
Hmm.
Like they're my storefront, I'll count that to like overhead. But if I'm paying like the tax, like I was just gonna hypothetical, if I'm paying the rent and then I'm also paying them for everything I sell, that's where the line needs to be drawn. Dude, you got me thinking. Wow, I didn't know that was how it worked.
No, that's how
What's happening,
Apple works.
metaverse?
It's pretty dumb.
I'm scared that like there's gonna be like the golden pants in the metaverse that are actually like $50,000 in real life, and people are gonna buy it. People are gonna do it just to like show that they had $50,000 for their
No.
avatar.
Dude, I don't know. Do we want to live in that world? Like,
That's
I
my
mean,
next
I don't know.
question.
I feel like the metaverse isn't too defined. Like, yeah, I think every company has like a different idea of like what the metaverse is, and you can maybe arguably even say that video games created the metaverse long before the metaverse was like created. I mean, like when you think about like huge online games, like like say World of Warcraft, for example, it's like a literal game that you create an avatar and you go into a world with you know tens of thousands of players in that world. Like, is that not just like the metaverse? Maybe not as surreal and vivid, but that is like essentially what Meta seemed to be trying to create, but just like in a little from like a VR kind of standpoint versus just like sitting on your computer. But it is a virtual world that is literally created. It's a huge world, and there are other players you can interact with and talk to.
It is. It's also interesting. I guess the question becomes, why do we feel like we can't do that in reality? Like, what's the thing stopping us from engaging people out
Yeah, I don't know what
here?
the selling point of the metaverse is, and it is something I need to read up on more because
Mm.
I feel like I'm missing something here. Uh, you know,
It's like with NFTs, dude. I'm like, so what exactly are you
and like,
getting?
well, exactly. Did you see folding ideas to like big video on NFTs?
No.
It's called Line Goes Up. The problem with NFTs, and
Ooh.
it's a really good video that like talks
Does it
about.
explain like what the benefit of purchasing an NFT is?
It basically just craps all over the whole crypto and
Oh.
NFT like marketplace. It criticizes it
Mm.
extensively in a very well done way. Um,
Might
and
have to
it
give
came
that a
it like
watch.
it was posted 10 days ago, and it's a 2 hour video, mind you. It's 3.5 million views. It got a lot of
Jeez.
traction. So um,
Definitely gonna have to give the cheese 2 hours. They were really going for it, huh?
yeah. It starts like with like how crypto came to be. What is crypto, and then it moves into NFTs, and it's like it was like he even like says in the beginning of it, it's like how do we get from like Bitcoin to Bored Ape Yacht Club? It's not something we could just snap my fingers and start talking about. We have to get there. Like we have to climb all
Oh
the way from the
wow.
bottom, and we have to talk all the way to before we get start talking about Bored Ape Yacht Club and stuff and NFTs and stuff.
Okay, I definitely check that.
It's a wild video, but what if like the metaverse is just going to create crypto, right? What if metaverses just create their own cryptocurrency that you have to buy, and then if you say you want to cash out for real money, they take a fee for every time you want to cash out.
Well, they
Because
were gonna try to have Libra, which was their cryptocurrency,
oh
Facebook's,
yeah, but the
but
SEC like shot that down or something.
yeah, they said no, no, no. But I mean, if the metaverse, like, I mean, can there be sanctions around that? It's completely untapped,
Hmm.
I guess, opportunity for them.
Yeah, uh,
Jeez.
I don't know. It just seems very odd to me, like the whole metaverse thing. So
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I
And I
mean, like,
guess,
is this something that people want? I just like don't understand.
you know what? That's a good question. And for those of you who are listening, if it is something you want or if it's something you don't want, please hit us up on social media. You can tweet at us at Whatcha Got Cast, what to spell WHATCHA, or hit us up on Instagram at Whatcha Got Podcast, Whatcha spelled the same way. I'm so curious to hear what people actually have to say about this.
Yeah.
I swear there's gonna be that one dude who's really good. He's like, "Yo, I'm waiting on the metaverse and counting down the days."
Hmm. And like
Oh
going
man.
back to like kind of tying it to the core theme of this is like, say we have the metaverse, right? Um, what would our reality become? Like, okay, so say let's envision that the metaverse is Ready Player One. Okay, let's just say that's what it is. And what would our reality become? Would our reality become the virtual world, or the world that we pretend we don't have, like the life that we we leave behind as we strap into our full body suit and VR helmet and walk around this metaverse, if you will.
You gotta like believe there's gonna be those couples who will never meet in person, but who will be together like every moment of every day in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that wild to think about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, geez.
Yep. I mean,
And,
that's like basically what happens in Ready Player One. Like he had like a huge love interest with this girl he literally doesn't know, and
yep.
but that's just like the nature of and it's because like they can get those like full body suits where you can feel like it's
I
sensual.
forgot about that.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
sensual.
yeah. I completely forgot about Ready Player One in that regard.
Yeah.
Oh man. I guess like knowing that though. So if you were just in a world like our own, and this is kind of came up, would you? And the question of you're real or you're not is posed to you. Would you want to know if you were real or not?
I'd what I want to know if I'm real or not, or
Yeah. Would you want to know if you were
I
real?
hope I'm real. Like I don't know. It's kind of hard to ask. Like, does a robot think the same way I do? Like, does it have? Oh, like what do we call consciousness? We haven't even been able to explain what consciousness is. Like, we don't know. Like, why we have. Like, yeah, is it related to intelligence? Is it? I don't know. Like, what creates consciousness? Do we know? I'm not a neuroscientist, though.
I don't. Do you like sentience is something that's interesting because think about it, there was literally a moment in your life when you went from not being able to process anything to being able to understand like I am a being, this person is this in relation to me, that's a blank, and like you were able to just retain all that. But like
And able to think and
yes. Isn't that
comprehend.
trippy?
Yeah.
Oh man. And then I was thinking about like memory. Like when we think about like when we remember things, it's not like we have like a giant TV or whatever in our head. It's literally just like electric signals in our brain firing a certain way that allows us to replay a moment from yesterday or years ago. And obviously not perfect, but it's still there, which is kind of fascinating.
It is definitely very fast. Would you want to know that, like, if you're real or not?
I've
How
come.
soul crushing would that be to be told one day, like, you're not
I'm not
real?
real. I'm not real.
You're not
I
a real
think-
boy.
You're a what? You're a monster. I think it wouldn't matter to me because even if I wasn't like real, I put that in air quotes for those of you who can't see me, I'd still be real. Like if I wasn't real and you were real, this moment right here that we're having is real. Like
Yeah.
it's all within however you define reality.
That's fair. That's definitely something to keep in mind. Like, this is my reality. This is how I define it, and whether or not I'm real or not, which I do think I am, won't
I think you are too.
change anything regarding that. So
Yes. So that was honestly my last thought, dude. Like, it's such an interest because it can literally be something we haven't even thought about. What is reality? Like, what are we? And will we ever know? I don't know. But
I
it's
don't
just
know.
kind of fun to just kick it around. And then like we saw, like it can go into all kinds of different areas. Like we just accept certain parts of our lives as they are. But in reality, like some things just it's like, does it matter or does it not? And at the end of the day, in 100 years, it won't matter. Like I don't think so. Like here we are.
we'll see, man. I feel like the next thing that I think, like, metaverse. So I Googled it, and apparently Wikipedia, I know, not the best source of info, but it's a great jumping off point. It does say that it is like, as we described, like a Ready Player One kind of thing. It's like a virtual reality, uh, life that you kind of live in. And Facebook, I guess, is planning to, you know, build something like that. So, and now Meta, I know it's just dumb to call it. Meta is creating a metaverse. Get it? But anyways,
Did they say how we're gonna like interface with it? Like, will it be like a headset? Will it be just like your computer?
I imagine it's gonna literally be ripped right from Ready Player One, in that you will have like a full body suit where you're able to touch and feel things, like, you know, live in that world. And in fact, Ready Player One's even on this Wikipedia page as like a book that is like a fictional metaverse.
Would you look at that?
Yeah. It is. It's Ready Player One, and the videos I've seen describing the metaverse have all kind of said that it's Ready Player One. So
I could just see like Mark Zuckerberg like pitching this idea, and they're like, "Mark, where did you? I don't know. I just went to sleep one night, and I like woke, and then you just see like a pan to his bedside, and it's Ready Player One.
Yeah,
just, like,
Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
This just came to me. Yeah,
it just came to me. Also, you know.
It's weird that Facebook is the one that's kind of doing. Like, I guess like they're all about social interaction, but at the same time, they're not really social interaction. Like, I don't go on Facebook anymore. I don't really know too much.
Oh, I don't go on Facebook anymore either.
Dude,
there's a cesspool of misinfo and, you know, your aunt.
Say happy birthday. Yeah. I say happy birthday to people from time to time, but yeah. Like, when I don't know if it's just like our age now. Like, I don't know if high school kids are like all about it. I think probably Instagram is like the new.
No, it's Facebook is, you know, the Zoomers are on TikTok. You know, the new generations on TikTok. The Boomers are on Facebook. The Millennials, who knows? They're kind of on all of them, and I would even say that the younger generation is probably also on most of them, but less so on Facebook, and probably all about like TikTok, and Instagram, you know.
Yeah, definitely. But we should revisit this in like 20 years and see where we're at.
Dude, I don't know, like freaking Bloomberg, you know, like says in like 10 years that the metaverse is gonna be like some multi-billion-dollar industry, and I'm like, I feel like it's just a buzzword that's being thrown around, and but I mean, it definitely is. I feel like every company is just saying that we're going to be building the metaverse. We're going to be, we're going to be doing our part to build the metaverse. I mean, Microsoft just bought Activision Blizzard for like $70 billion. And they're like, Microsoft head, like gaming head Phil Spencer was like, yeah, they're going to be an important partner in building the metaverse. I'm like, the hell? Microsoft's doing a metaverse now? Of course. Dude, that's the other thing.
Like, there will be multiple metaverses, so it's like, which one do you choose? You just go back and forth.
Are they all going to be connected? But then, if they're all connected, who gets the freaking paycheck at the end of the day? This is the future of freaking capitalism. Let it be known. The metaverse is not necessarily the best idea, especially since Ready Player One is a literal dystopia.
Yep. Also, like the servers and everything that will basically, if the majority of the world adopts this, also like what's going to happen for people who can't afford the, like,
yeah,
I'm scared that like there's going to be a maybe we should just have an episode on the metaverse.
We should.
I'm scared there's going to be just like a push to like put basic everyday things that we need in the metaverse to get drive more people onto it. And it's just going to be like, that's going to become our... Although, I'm also thinking about, like, Google Glass, which everybody was like, oh, this is the next big thing. Like, augmented reality, you're going to be able to interface with everything. And that just, like, fell through because they said nobody wanted it or cared. So,
we'll see. I don't know. Like, is there... Like, yeah, that's the thing I brought up earlier. And, like, I know that this was kind of a notable conclusion as we talked about reality and, like, kind of, perceiving reality. But as we're talking about the metaverse a lot here. But, like, is that... is this something people want? I'm telling you right now, it's not something I necessarily want. I don't want the metaverse. It just feels like this is just like a big new thing that tech companies are trying to pursue, is to be kind of like this new groundbreaking technology. But like, how many people out there actually want the metaverse? Do you want it, Palmer?
I don't want the metaverse. I think that they're realizing that, there's a finite number of resources in our world right now. And
yes.
The expense of trying to claim those, and then everything, it's just easier to create something that you can have an infinite supply of, and that's what the
but
push
like
is there.
What we can't like, but that doesn't necessarily stop us from living on Earth. Like, we still have to live on Earth. Those resources still need to be used and consumed. It's not like we go into the metaverse to escape our problems. Like, so I can eat in the metaverse, therefore I don't have to eat in real life. I just ate virtual meatloaf. I'm okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's like more along the lines of the expense of like, let's say phones, right? Like, don't you have to get like some special like thing, like mineral or metal that's deep in the ground, and they have like people in like other like countries and other continents who are like,
Yeah, but you think
drink.
like things like a VR headset and haptic suits are not going to be like utilizing the same minerals or even scarcer minerals? Like, you're going to try to get the entire world onto this? Like, it's just, and who's to say? Like, I don't know what their goal is of the metaverse. Like, I don't know what Meta is trying to do. And I know there are tons of companies out there now pursuing this. Uh, Random technology that has basically only been widely popularized by Ready Player One, a dystopian science fiction novel about people literally living in this. So, I mean, the whole dystopian world was because of this game. That is the metaverse in Ready Player One. It's called the Oasis. It's just a like this massive multiplayer online game that basically mimics real life, but you can be kind of whoever you want to be in that game. In Ready Player One, and the world around it, I think, is kind of just awful from what I remember. I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was a direct correlation, but I feel like it kind of is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was. And I was literally about to say something, but
Like
it's
people like
gone. But
use like their jobs were in the game. Like they
yeah, oh,
yeah, their
absolutely.
jobs were
Schools
in the
were in the
game.
game.
Yeah. Schools were in the game. Like it was this is what Meta wants to create. That Mark Zuckerberg read Ready Player One, and he didn't take away. What he took away from that was that this is a good idea and not a danger to of the advancement of technology. Not a like he said he missed the point where it was a dystopian novel and somehow kind of came back and was like that is genius.
And isn't it? Oh, wait, spoiler alert for Ready Player One. So everybody hop off for a second. It's different from the movie. So if you saw the movie, you think you know the ending, and you want to read the book, I'm about to reveal the book ending. Hop off. Okay, didn't they like he never like he didn't log back into the Oasis after he like finished it, right?
Well, there's a sequel that came out in 2020, Ready Player
Oh,
2,
Ready Player
and I need to
2.
read it. Um,
I do too.
yes,
Okay.
he didn't ever log back in to it unless the sequel,
Changes that.
retcons that. So,
Okay.
um, but I don't know. I mean, the worst part is that the Oasis didn't have like a profit motive in a sense.
No.
Meta is going to have a profit motive. All of these metaverse, like all these companies waving around the metaverse as like their buzzword that was like, circa like the blockchain was in circa 2013, that they're going to have a profit motive. I think Facebook says that we're going to, personalize ads towards people. Like imagine living in a freaking world right now, the metaverse, right? And a freaking pop-up flies into your freaking face while you're doing something with your buddies, like in a or if you're in class learning something. Like, could you imagine how stupid
Dude,
that would be?
we're like slowly moving into a Black Mirror world, and it scares me.
We're literally moving into a dystopian world in more ways than one, not just with the like the pursuit of the metaverse, but in very other many ways. So
Jeez.
it's a boring dystopia.
Yep. But it's our boring dystopia.
Anyways,
Oh,
we
man.
ranted so long about the metaverse. I think,
I know,
unless there's
yeah.
something
that,
else you want to talk about in
no,
terms
that
of the
was
reality.
that was it. It's what a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive, indeed.
But no, that's it
Alrighty.
for me, bud. Any final thoughts?
I think I'm good there, Palmer. I think I'm good. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. That's our show. We're the What You Got podcast, hosted by yours truly, Charlie Budd, and as always, with me is Jordan Palmer. I really kind of butchered that one. You can catch us every Monday nights, every week. So be sure to drop a follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're up on YouTube. You can find us. You just type in the Whatcha Got Podcast. We'll drop in the episode links on Twitter when they go live. They're usually up a day later. So be on the lookout for that and subscribe. And follow us on the social medias. And Palmer dropped it earlier, but why don't you drop it one more time?
One more time for the people, you can follow us on Instagram at Whatcha Got Podcast, which is spelled WHATCHA, or on Twitter at Whatcha Got Cast, which is spelled the same way.
And until next week, you guys have a good one.